Hi. My name's Julia, and I'm going to tell you something about testing React components today. And before that, I would like to introduce myself, just so you know who I am before I talk to you. I work at OC Tanner, and we do employee appreciation. And I'm currently working on one of the internal tools using React.js. And I started learning Racket a few weeks ago as well as functional programming, mainly using Haskell. And I also like to play some games. Okay, so why do we testing? Bert Rutan, who is a famous aerospace engineer, once said, testing leads to failure, and failure leads to understanding. Okay, but why really do we testing front end? So normally when people think of testing, they normally think about backend testing. And here are some of the reasons why testing front end is also important. Just like backend, we also have edge cases. So for example, if you have like an input field, such as password, and then you require special combinations of characters or certain length, you would like to blast it out with thousands of test cases just to thoroughly testing it. And as well as separation of concern, which I will show you how testing can reinforce that technique. And of course, we care about security. Okay, tools. I'm not here to tell you which tools to use because there are some people who like to use Just, which is a Facebook tool for testing, and some others like to use Mocha or Jasmine. So tools doesn't really matter as long as you're comfortable with it. That's all that matters. Now, I would like to tell you some of the gotchas that actually trip me up, because sometimes I feel like the errors shown on the screen are not as intuitive, and it normally takes a few scrolls on Google search to actually figure out what the real reason is, and since we never scroll past to page 2, so it could be hard sometimes. Okay, say you want to test one of the input fields type. And so you do something like this. So you use testutils.find rendered DOM components with tag. And then you pass in the component that you want to test and the tag name. So here you have the input fields. Now everything looks fine, but all of a sudden you get this error, which is did not find exactly one match for tag input. So now you start to wonder, okay, do I actually have an input field, or if there's something wrong with my input field? But it turns out that you are using the wrong one because you have more than one input field on this on that component. And testutils.find rendered DOM components with tag will only work if you have one input field. If you have more than one, you would like to use testutils.scribe rendered DOM component with tag, and then you pass the same information in there. So now you rendered into the app component using render into document, and then you find the list of input fields with testutils.scribe rendered DOM component with tag. And then you would like to test if the first input field's type is text field. So you do something like this, which seems pretty reasonable. But then you get this error, which is .get attribute is not a function. So now you start wondering back if there's something wrong with the input field, or if there's something wrong only with your first input field. Now it turns out you just need to use the .get DOM node of the field, because in React, you have to have a reference to the DOM node if you want to interact with the browser. Okay, so now you tested that input field, and you want to test something else. So you test this other component. So you render into the component app, and then you would like to see if that contains certain things. But then all of a sudden, you get so many errors on your test results. Something like cannot read property, get DOM node, or if you have some test that's testing your length of the data, you may get this, or cannot read property tag name of undefined. You're like, okay, something's really wrong. And now you have to scroll back and see which test actually caused the error. But it turns out that you simply forgot to pass in the props that that component actually needs. Now this leads to a very interesting topic, which is state versus props. And I'm sure we all used state, and we all like states, since we can do logic in there and then reset the state, and then this will cause the component to render again, which is good. But it may not be so during testing. So we have this AJAX call, which calls to some server, and then we get some data back, and then we set the data back to the state. But now, if you do test that component, you're actually testing two pieces. One is the AJAX call, and the other one is a component. Now, this is the opposite of the separation of concerns that we talked about earlier. Another example would be if there's any authentication on the component, we will have to mock the data to test those components, and then proceed to test our own component after that. But then if the test fails, we don't know for sure exactly which one is wrong, since it can be our mock data that's actually wrong, not the component. So props. We use props because you get to know exactly what the data is when you pass the test data in. And components that are completely props driven gives you a complete control. And then when calling components, you simply do render into document, and then say you have a login, and then you can pass some mock data into the login to test, or if you have some panel page. And if you're still not convinced, props are just like parameters in the functions. Now, say we have a function that takes 2 parameters, and then we do some calculation, and then we return the result based on that calculation. So we do something like this, which is so calculation before the if-else statement. Or we can write something like this, which is separate out the calculation part into another function, and then test it. Now, which one do you think will be simpler to test? The second one, because now we get to test the calculate method beforehand, so we know that for sure is correct. So for the previous slide, we can have a separate component that does the AJAX call, and then pass the return data into the actual component that we want to test. And then when we test, make sure you mock those data for the AJAX component, just so we're not testing both. And we have a lot of stuff on the screen, like text fields, like radio buttons, input fields, and submit buttons, and they're really, really simple to test by using testutils.simulate. So according to the doc definitions. It simulates an event dispatch on a DOM node with optional event data. And you can simply do simulate.click, .change, or .keyup, and there's so many more that it will make your testing really, really simple. So the big takeaways here is we would like to separate the logic into different components so you get to know exactly what you're testing and the results will be more reliable. And props. Use props because props let you write tests for each state of the component rather than a long test over time that tries to manipulate a state. Now, I would like to switch to Karma Test Runner. For those of you who use Karma Test Runner, there's actually a cool feature for coverage report, since we all care what percentage of the code that we covered. And it's really, really simple to set it up, and I will show you that as well. And then you can also choose the format. So, for the Karma coverage report, they have a color indication of the coverage. So if you have like less than 50%, they will show you the red color, which is really bad, and you should feel bad. And then if you test it around 70 to 80%, it will be yellow. Be like, okay, you did better this time. And then if it's very good, you get a yay, green color. And another cool feature for this report you will see is underneath the percentage, the report actually will test over the JSX code, which is pretty cool. So you get to see exactly which part of your code gets tested. So the green thing on the bar means the lines that got tested. And the numbers on there means the numbers of times that those lines got tested, which you can tell if it did the job. And the red one across means it didn't get tested. And then sometimes if you hover over it, it will tell you why. So I guess for this case, I didn't test the fail case. And then, to set the Karma up, the Karma coverage graph up, you just put these, so you put the coverage inside of reporters in the karma.conf.js, and then you simply indicate which folder you want those reports to be in what format. And then you can actually set up multiple formats in multiple folders as well. And that's all I have. Thank you. And if you have any questions, you can tweet about it. And thanks for OC Tanner for supporting me on this. Thank you.